Hi, welcome back to another Stand on Guard episode. I'm your host, David Krayden, and we're going to walk you through some of the recent clips at the Liberal Party had when they were at their retreat. And believe me, they are retreating. We'll be right back with how we know they're retreating. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist. Thank you for watching today. And before we get into the guts of the program, I just wanted to read a few comments because we do read your comments, and thank you so much. We're a growing station. A year ago, I wasn't sure this thing was going to work, but I'm convinced now it is. It's going to work. Here's somebody who writes, just subscribe. Thanks for pointing out today's political idiots and eco-capitalists getting at the expense of our country and its citizens. Well, you know, it's so obvious to anybody how many political idiots there are in this country today and how many useful idiots there are. And, you know, I had former Liberal MP Dan McTeague on the show recently, in fact, a couple of days ago, and he called Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, a useful idiot for the Chinese, for the environmental extremists, and that's who he's working for. He's not working for you and I. He's not working for Canadians. And here's another comment here. Hi, David Krayden. I watch every second of your videos and enjoy your guests. You and the people on your show are right, but are off the mark, which means neither of you has a solution at all. There's a way to make Canada great again. And this person says the first step would be to shut down all businesses and let people feel the heat now, which will come up later as long as the spoiled brat stays in power. Must be talking about Justin Trudeau, because he says, well, you know what I'm saying. And remember, we were talking about the price of gas being $1.85 in PEI, and Dan McTeague of Canadians for Affordable Energy saying it's going to go up to $2 very fast. Well, one of our viewers said it's already $2.08 in Vancouver and still going up. And that was a couple of weeks ago. Well, the thing is, the reason it's so much higher, and I always knew this, but once again, the Liberal government's been lying to us. It's saying that, you know, if you've got a provincial carbon tax, we won't push our federal tax on you. Not true. This is why Vancouver has got the highest gas prices in North America. It's because they've got a provincial carbon tax and a federal carbon tax, and it's just pushing up the price of gas. It's like 50%. You know, I'm exaggerating slightly, but it's at least 40% tax now, and this is obscene. So, is Trudeau in touch? Do you think Trudeau's in touch with Canadians? Not at all. You know, even though he's hearing nothing but anger every place he goes, except when he's standing in front of his Liberal caucus. And most of these people behind him are cabinet ministers. It's the only time he ever has a friendly audience. But amid all the anger, Trudeau says policy hiking gas prices is needed. And you know why he thinks it's needed? Because he thinks it's fighting climate change. So if you're paying $5 a liter for gas, that's fighting climate change. Even if you have to continue to drive your car, you'll just be paying more, or you're going to starve, or you'll lose your job, or you can't work at all. And this is the insanity of the Trudeau government. And by the way, that comment about we don't have any answers, I think we do present solutions. I don't think that's a fair assessment at all, because I do provide answers to this. I mean, clearly, there's a very simple answer to the escalating price of gas, and that's as the Conservative Party of Canada and the People's Party of Canada advocate, get rid of the carbon tax. It's doing nothing. And even if you believe that we need to reduce greenhouse gases. Canada only produces 1.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So how is it going to make any difference, even if we go to net zero and live in caves and have no electricity, no air conditioning, and can't drive our cars? How is that going to affect global greenhouse gas emissions? Because we all live on the same planet. It's not like Canada lives in a vacuum. So if we go net zero, it's going to mean no increasing climate change above our country. We all live in the same earth. And China is the one producing 33% of the greenhouse gas emissions. And China has no intention of reducing those because they are going Mach 6 on their energy. And all they want to do is become the leading economic and military power in the world. And they don't care if they don't meet their greenhouse gas emission targets. If they don't hit net zero by 2035 or even 2050, they don't care. So what's happening in Trudeau because of this? I mean, there's probably something going on here. Right? His popularity of both Trudeau and the party is plummeting, catering, just going to the bottom. It's going through the floor. Now, this is the highest the Conservatives have polled, my God, since Stephen Harper, probably. They're getting into majority territory with 41%. The Liberals are at 28%, are clearly losing their support. And there's still enough idiots who think the NDP are different than the Liberals, and they're not. They're just a different color. They're orange, not red. That's the only bloody difference here. And it's so you've got to know that Canadians are finally waking up and saying, this guy has got to go. This prime minister is sold out, has sold out to the environmental extremists. As far as I'm concerned, the Chinese interest. That's why he is not called for a public inquiry into Chinese election interference. He got away with it. He left the House recess in the third week of June. And I said at the time, you might recall me saying in here, he is going to go through the whole summer without calling a public inquiry. And sure enough, here we are in the dying days of August. September is on the horizon. We're nearing the end of summer, and he has gotten away with it. So, and I want to share some clips with you because I think it's, I think these are quite interesting, and we'll walk you through these because they're really, they are really fascinating.
Bonjour tout le monde. They're facing tough times, and yes, everyone is finding it difficult right now. And as leaders, MPs, parliamentarians of all types, part of our job is to be there, to take it, to support it, as Canadians are worried and anxious, and put out those solutions. So yeah. It's not an easy time to be a politician.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Teresa Wright. I'm a freelance reporter, but I'm here with the Canadian Press today. Last weekend, I was camping with my family, and
watch the smile, because this is the same reporter who asked Pierre Poilievre if he was courting the far right because he dares to criticize the World Economic Forum. So Trudeau knows all about that question because those are the Liberal talking points she was referring to, that the Conservative Party is somehow courting the far right. And the far right meaning anyone who objects to the World Economic Forum trying to dominate and take over our lives and take away our freedom. So look at Trudeau, the big shit-eating grin on him. Yeah, I rarely swear, but look at this. He's anticipating a softball question.
There was a vehicle that was a part of our, it was our neighbors basically, and it had a bumper sticker on it with your name and an expletive, which I had to explain to my children. Given that you're trying to do something that has rarely been achieved in Canada in history, a fourth mandate, have you considered the possibility that you have become a liability?
Ever since the pandemic, in particular, we've seen an increase in polarization and frustration and anxiety and mental health pressures on a whole lot of people right across the country. Nobody has been unaffected by that. And part of the challenge we have politically is that we are seeing deeper polarizations. But don't write off Canadians just because they choose to wave a nasty flag. Don't write off a neighbor who chooses to put a bumper sticker that unfortunately you then have to explain to your kids.
Okay, are we getting this? Are we getting this? Trudeau actually said there that if you're part of the opposition, if you're part of the resistance to his government, that you have mental health problems because you obviously just can't see the sanity of this Trudeau government. So you must have something wrong up here. Now, if you think this man was arrogant, supercilious, and just completely out of touch with reality, listen to it again. But he has basically written off his critics as crazy people needing psychiatric help because they don't see what a great job he's doing. And it just amazes me how he continues to get away with this nonsense. So let's listen to a little more of this.
About whether they've lost their homes, about whether they need to evacuate, about how things are going. And that's where local news is so important. And the work that people are doing to share messages and keep people informed with safe, up-to-date information is unbelievably essential to keeping Canadians safe. That's why, and I'm going to make a comment on this, it is so inconceivable that a company like Facebook is choosing to put corporate profits ahead of ensuring that local news organizations can get up-to-date information to Canadians and reach them where Canadians spend a lot of their time, online, on social media, on Facebook. Facebook made billions of dollars in profits over the past years, including off of Canadians. And we recently passed legislation that says, Facebook, if you're going to be sharing news or work done by Canadian journalists or local news, you have to make sure they're compensated for it.
Prime Minister, going back to your comments about Facebook, the company is only responding to your government's legislation that was passed earlier this year. So will you back down or change on C-18? Because they're saying that that's why they're blocking news.
The legislation we passed says that companies like Facebook that share local news on their sites, that allow people to share local news, should be sharing themselves some of the profits they make from advertising on Facebook, from sharing that information. It is Facebook's decision to put corporate profits ahead of allowing Canadians to access the news. Instead of making sure they're paying their fair share of the advertising profits Facebook makes off of Canadians with the professional journalists and local news organizations that keep Canadians informed, they are choosing to block access to their sites or access from sharing important local news. This is Facebook's.
All right, let's unpack this here. Is Trudeau such a half-wit? And I'd say, yes, he is such a half-wit that he doesn't know how media works today. He thinks we're still living in the age of newspapers. This is a guy who thinks he's so hip, but he's so bloody stupid about things like this. It's because media are on Facebook that they can make more money. Millions of more people see their work. I know this because I had millions of people see articles of mine because they were posted on Facebook and on Twitter and on other social media. And that drove up the readership. It meant more money for me. It meant more clicks. And it means more ad revenue for the media. This is how stupid this man is. He doesn't understand this at all. So what is this bill about, this C-18 bill? It's about extorting money from social media, forcing them to pay to put up stories that is only going to help the media in the first place. So media will be looking at this and saying, I need Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or E as it's now called, to survive, because more people are going to be reading my articles. C-18 was all about censorship. It was all about controlling the media and about extorting money from social media. I don't care how much money social media made. It's because people are on social media all the time. And Trudeau just wants to control what you can see, what you can hear, what you can read. It's all about control by Justin Trudeau. And he's such an idiot. He doesn't understand how new media works, how the whole system of social media feeds the media today, the traditional media. It can't survive without social media. Everybody is getting their news off of social media. Trudeau wants to control that. He wants to extort money, and there's not even a mechanism in this bill to stipulate how much money social media is supposed to pay. It could be anything. And so, of course, social media is saying, forget it. We're not going to have money extorted from us by this damn liberal government in Canada. We're not going to give millions of dollars to media companies so we can promote their material. This is how it is. He expects social media to pay money so they can promote material. That's how it works, Justy. That's not how it works. And you know nothing about media today. That's why nobody watches your damn YouTube channel, because you really don't know anything about it. And it's embarrassing to listen to you. You are so detached from reality. You are so incredibly ignorant about how things work. All you want to do is grab more power and take our freedom away and extinguish our freedom of speech. And I'm bloody well sick of it. And I'm sick of the drivel coming out of your mouth, because you don't even know what you're talking about. You just say whatever you think people will believe. Well, they're not believing it anymore. Let's hear a little bit more.
Minister LeBlanc, could you tell me, do you know what the unemployment rate is right now?
We're not actually doing interviews on a bench here.
Oh, you're just smoking a cigar while millions of Canadians suffer from wildfires and are unemployed?
No, I'm talking to some colleagues of mine.
How's the cigar?
Have a nice evening.
Could you tell me why Minister Stephen Guilbeault is serving the Chinese Communist Party?
I think you spent too much time with a tinfoil hat on.
Really, because we actually have the documents to prove it, and we know that your government has given them $1.6 million. Did you buy that appointment, that communist appointment? I'm sorry to interrupt your cigar break.
You're not busy, are you, tonight, obviously?
Just speaking with you.
Yeah, it's too bad, actually.
Why is that? You're afraid Canadians would get some answers from you corrupt liberals? How much money did this whole convention cost?
It's actually not a convention, it's a meeting.
Now, this is absolutely classic here. This is Dominic LeBlanc, the new Minister of Public Safety. And he has the nerve to say to a journalistic friend of mine, Keean Bexte, that he's wearing a tinfoil hat because he's reporting that the Environment and Climate Change Minister, Stephen Guilbeault, environmental extremist who used to get arrested routinely because he belonged to an eco-terrorist group called Greenpeace. Keean Bexte is reporting, as I did in the article you just saw there. Let's see this here. Yeah. Clearly, there is something wrong because, and I reported, and as a lot of people reported, Stephen Guilbeault is in China right now as I speak, and he is liaising with a Chinese Communist Party Environmental Council. He is the executive vice chairman of this group, and it's a Communist Party controlled organization. Number 6 in China. He sits on the Politburo, leads this organization. He's the chairman of it. So Guilbeault is in China right now, even though we have got all of these issues with China, including Chinese election interference. But Guilbeault flies to China to meet with his Communist Party buddies. And Dominic LeBlanc is either so stupid, so ignorant, or so rude that he suggests the reporter here is wearing a tinfoil hat, even though this is reality. This is reality, and nobody's denying this. Nobody has denied that Stephen Guilbeault is in China talking to a Communist Party group. He's on the website. He's on their website as the executive vice chairman. So you can see that Dominic LeBlanc is the one who has nothing but time on his hands to sit around with his those are probably his staffers, smoking cigars and no doubt having a few in Charlottetown. God knows if this was in any way financed by the taxpayer. I don't know. They weren't saying. But the point is, they're absent without leave again, as they always are. So let's have a look at another one of these clips where essentially a liberal cabinet minister gets sandbagged and really looks stupid.
I'm going to bed.
We actually just met in Calgary a while ago. Do you remember?
Hi, Minister. How are you?
How are you?
We were asking about your net zero policies and how they were going to affect Alberta disproportionately, and now we've sort of figured out why. Because we know that you work on a communist committee based in China, based in Beijing, and in fact you pay $1.6 million for that seat. We're wondering if you think that there's any potential conflict of interest with the fact that you think China should go offline.
Come on. Is he there?
You think China should go... No, why would you stop me from asking a question? Come on. We can be friendly. We can be fair. This is a free country. He's not under threat. Let me just ask my question. Sure, absolutely. You can keep him safe from me. Could you tell me, do you think that there's a conflict of interest inherently in the fact that you think China should be able to go net zero far later than we're allowed to, decades in fact? Do you think that it amounts to some sort of equalization payment to China via energy payments? What? Bro, come on. We're being polite.
Yeah.
Just because the CBC doesn't do this doesn't mean that this is a strange thing for a democracy. Minister Guilbeault, could you tell me how many Canadians right now are displaced by a wildfire? Could you tell me the amount of people? And can you tell me the amount of people who would be displaced by wildfires if you didn't have a carbon tax? I think that's a very fair question. Do you have any actual data to back up what you're doing? Or is it all just whatever the government of China tells you to do? Do you take money from the government of China yourself? How do you not see the conflict of interest that is coming out of this? Catherine McKenna had the same, but you're the only one bold enough to actually do anything with that conflict of interest. You're letting China off the hook for decades at the expense of moms and dads who can't keep their house warm because you've made food so unaffordable, rent so unaffordable, and energy so unaffordable that they are going to freeze to death this winter if they haven't been burned alive by a forest fire that you've ignored.
Yeah. So there's not much more I can add to this. This is a minister in deep denial. Does he see a conflict of interest with him flying to China, with all the problems we've had with China, with China locking up Canadians, with China setting up police stations in Canada so they can actively intimidate and harass the Chinese diaspora and Chinese dissidents, or with China interfering in Canadian elections to the benefit of the Liberal Party? Does he see this as a conflict of interest? He's flying to China to meet with a Communist Party-controlled council, environmental council. I don't know if he does. I don't know if he cares. Guilbeault only cares about his environmental agenda, his radical extremist environmental agenda, and his own political power. That's the only thing Guilbeault is concerned about. And it's quite evident from here. These are obvious questions to ask. And thank God for Keean being in Charlottetown. Nobody else was there. Nobody else who wanted to ask any questions was there to talk to these ministers after hours. So I'm glad he was there to do that. But he got no answers. And you see that jerk. I don't know if he's RCMP. I don't know if he's parliamentary security or Guilbeault's personal bodyguard trying to push the journalist out of the way. Don't ask any questions. This is the guy who used to routinely get arrested, and now he's pushing people away, threatening them. This is disgusting what Canadian democracy has come to. This man should not only resign, he should have been fired. He should not be coming back from China. He should stay there with his Marxist friends. Well, actually, they're closer to fascism than Marxists today. But this is absolutely pitiful to watch. To see this pitiful minister, this pathetic minister, has really nothing to offer Canada except to steal our money, to make life more unaffordable, to make it impossible to make ends meet, to lie about subsidies to the oil and gas industry that never existed, to lie about how it's going to be possible to achieve net zero on the electricity grid when provinces like Saskatchewan, Alberta don't have hydroelectricity. They rely on fossil fuels. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody beyond his little bubble. This is a bad minister. And it is not nice to see. This next story, I think, is just incredible for the Liberal arrogance. Now, this is, you recall how our Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland.
A fact that still shocks my dad is I don't actually own a car. So
here she is. She's claiming she doesn't own a car. I don't know if it's true or not. But she certainly knows how to drive a car. And she's very familiar with cars as long as they're chauffeured by other people, and other people are driving her there to the airport and back. And she even insists when she flies someplace that her chauffeur and the car drive to that location and wait for her. Now, is that producing a few carbon or a few greenhouse gases? Is that increasing your personal carbon footprint? Do you care, Chrystia Freeland? Or are you going to talk about how you never use cars? You just use the subway and your bike.
I live in downtown Toronto. I'm 300 meters from the nearest subway. I walk, I take the subway, I make my kids walk and ride their bikes and take the subway. It's actually healthier for our family. I can live that way.
Good afternoon, Lisa Mayer, CBC News. I have a couple of quick questions for Minister Freeland as well. I'm wondering what your reaction is to the leak about your speeding ticket, and do you have concerns about the fact that that was leaked publicly?
So look, I did get a speeding ticket driving between Grand Prairie and Peace River. I was driving too fast, and I won't do it again.
Okay. So the story here, of course, is that just after she talked about how much she hates cars, she's driving at between 130 and 140 kilometers an hour in Alberta, and she gets a speeding ticket. Boy, she loves the speed. Eh? She loves to go fast. And just like all of these hypocrites who talk about how they just take the bus, the subway, she likes to get behind that wheel and go like mad. You bet she does. And this reporter has incredibly doesn't say, Madam Minister, what were you doing driving a car at 130 to 140 kilometers an hour, getting a speeding ticket when you don't like to drive, apparently? Why didn't you take the bus? No, the reporter is more concerned about the fact the story was leaked, that a journalist dug the story out. She's more concerned about that. How dare anybody in this Canadian media violate the privacy of this arrogant minister? She should be doing things without any questions being asked. And of course, that's exactly how the CBC thinks. Yes. And Freeland, of course, I guess, didn't have the absolute temerity to say, well, you know, I was really insulted. She had actually addressed the issue, but it was a big joke to her, wasn't it? It's a big joke to her because they're all in on the joke together. The legacy media, the mainstream media, and the Liberal government, they're all in on it together. And it's embarrassing. So here's our last clip of the day.
The opposition parties in your government reached a terms of reference for the foreign interference inquiry in early July. Has none been announced because you can't find somebody to lead it?
No, we continue to work very closely with all opposition parties on making sure that the terms of reference, the person who will be leading it, and the work that is done is in the best interests of all Canadians, that they are able to do the work without the kind of partisan toxicity we saw during the fall. We know that a robust inquiry into foreign interference of all different types is really important for democracy, and that's why we're moving forward with that.
Foreign interference inquiry, he said that the opposition parties are still working together, that something's happening. What's the holdup on calling this inquiry in your mind? Because he says you haven't come to a consensus yet.
We gave him names, we gave him a mandate, and we've been waiting ever since. The holdup is Justin Trudeau. Only Justin Trudeau has the authority to call a public inquiry. As Leader of the Opposition, I have no authority under the Inquiries Act. I've made my suggestions and I'm now waiting for him. You almost wonder if Trudeau doesn't want the truth to come out about Beijing's interference in our democracy before the next election so that he can allow that interference to happen all over again. He benefited from it twice, and he knew it because we know that he had the briefings on it, and he did absolutely nothing. And now he's blocking inquiry. He didn't introduce a foreign influence registry to identify those paid agents who work for foreign dictators to manipulate our politics. It seems to me Trudeau is fine to allow the foreign influence to continue as long as it benefits him.
Precisely, Mr. Poilievre. And does Justin Trudeau really want the truth to come out about this? No. That's why he lied consistently about knowing anything about this. Claimed he was never briefed by CSIS. claimed he knew nothing about Chinese election interference. And once the whole scandal erupted, he had the audacity, the gall, to suggest he was the one who was always concerned about Chinese election interference. It was always in the top of his mind. He was the one fighting for justice and truth. He is a consummate liar. There's no more you can say about that. He chronically lies about all of this stuff. He gets up in front of the media and he tells bald-faced lies about what he knew and when he knew it. And he's got the nerve to say, it's not my fault there's no public inquiry. I started this broadcast by saying that I had said in June that Trudeau would get through the summer without a public inquiry about Chinese election interference. And he's done that. And now he's blamed, as usual, he projects his own problems on other people. He's the one that's not doing anything about this, but he blames Poilievre and the opposition. They're the ones responsible for no public inquiry. And that's the way Justin Trudeau works. I don't know if he has a conscience or if he's consulted it in a while, but it certainly appears like he hasn't, because he just loves to suggest it's everybody else's fault, not mine. He has completely compromised this country. We are on a road to catastrophic economic disaster because of his environmental policies. We are the only country in the world now with a euthanasia program, and you don't even have to be sick to qualify. You can just be a little depressed. We have abortion on demand up to birth. We have increasing censorship, and there's more coming next month or the month after. That's going to make it almost impossible to say what you want on social media or the internet. It's called the Online Safety Bill. He's going to resurrect this in the fall, and it's going to make disinformation something that the government can remove, and the government won't even be defining what that is. It means whatever this Liberal government, this Trudeau government, says it is. So that is frightening. He has taken us down an authoritarian road, and he constantly demonizes, vilifies his opponents as racist and misogynist, exactly what he has been all his life. He is shameless. I'm sure you're sick of seeing his snide, sneering, arrogant, smiling face on the camera. We need to get rid of this man as prime minister as soon as possible. And we need to fight back, and we need to push back, and we need to say enough is enough of this guy. Enough is enough of this Liberal government. And that's why I want to encourage you again to participate in the 1 million-person march on September 20th. It's going to be in your local town or city at the nearest government building. So in other words, if you're in a small town, it's going to be at the mayor's office. If you're in a provincial capital, it's going to be at the legislature. If you're in Ottawa, it's going to be at Parliament Hill. And that march is going to fight to preserve parental rights and to stop Justin Trudeau from giving those rights to the state and to parents. And it's going to be about stopping his gender ideology that is exploding, mushrooming in our school systems. It's a time to say no. What are we doing about things? How are we fighting back? And are we just saying words? No. This is an example of Canadians of many political stripes, of many faiths, coming together to say, it's you are the problem, Justin Trudeau. Your policies are the problem, and we are saying no. We're saying enough is enough, and that's it. So I encourage you to partake in that. I also encourage you to subscribe to the station, ring that bell so you can continue to hear the news. This is how the algorithm works on YouTube. You need to ring that bell. And we need to fight Trudeau's censorship. We need to do that more than just about anything else. Because if we can't talk the truth, how do we fight evil? How do we fight back if we can't speak the truth? If we can't speak the truth to power, we are being defeated. We need that. And go on my Substack, support me there, and please watch this show every time we're on. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for making this station stronger and better every week. And we're here for you, because I am not going to put up with Justin Trudeau's lies. And I know you aren't either. So thanks for being here this week.